Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 116 of the Below the Yellow Line podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Landy Pavel. Alongside me tonight, I have Daniel Ford and returning guest, Luis Torres from the Motorsports Tribune. Great to have Luis here tonight, and it's going to be a great podcast for many reasons. We have a lot of racing, a lot of action that happened over this weekend, and we'll get everything started with NASCAR as we always do. And what has been synonymous with NASCAR in 2021? The unexpected. And the unexpected is real. Kyle Larson wins again. He wins at Nashville Superspeedway. And should anybody be surprised at this point that he's gone back to victory lane for the third time in a row?
Truth be told, no, because this performance has just been straight up dominant this entire time.
Not really at this point. He's been. If you're gonna, I said this at Darlington. If you're gonna get, or any other race for that matter involving this guy, if you're gonna be Martin Truex Jr., you gotta be on top of your game. Scratch Truex, put Larson as that guy. If you're gonna get through any race, you gotta go through Larson first.
And yeah, and on top of that, he's just been on a roll lately.
And Kyle Larson. Oh, exactly. And Kyle Larson, throw him at the tracks that he's won. Okay, he's won at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I'd say they call that track a cookie cutter 1.5 mile, D-shaped oval. Larson dominated that race. That was his first win with Hendrick Motorsports, first win of the year. He's finished second place in the two races before he went on the stretch. Actually, the last 3 races before his win at the Coca-Cola 600. So he could have very well won 6 races in a row if you really, really think about it. Kyle Larson is on a tear, and to say that he's on a tear is an absolute understatement. Let's not forget that he swept the stages in Charlotte, in the Coca-Cola 600, and Sonoma in the Save Mart 350. Larson goes on to win at 2 completely different racetracks. Actually, make that 3, and then a 4th, Nashville Superspeedway, a track that's never been seen before in the Cup Series. Are we finally seeing our first true championship contender in Kyle Larson?
Most definitely. Well, I guess you want to say first true championship contender. We haven't seen that since 2017 with Martin Truex Jr. since he ran with Furniture Row.
I think, yeah, as far as this season is concerned, it looked like it was going to be Denny and Truex. It could be Joe Gibbs Racing, half of them at least, going through everyone. And Larson, but Larson's been consistent. The thing was, early in the year, he had to polish some things, not overdrive the car, because he does tend to go that route, like at Atlanta. Cost him the win. Darlington, had he been a tad bit more patient, he probably would have catched Truex and we would have seen an epic, thrilling finish.
Yeah.
Now he's finally polished everything together. He's finally got over he's won the first 2 stages. Stage 3, he's not going to win it. Now you just have to hope and find a way to beat him in any capacity. And I think with the Pocono doubleheader, I think it is probable. Will it happen? Time will tell. But as far as a true dominant driver, well, we saw Hamlin and Harvick last year. You mentioned Truex in 17, a year that it looked like Larson could have been a title contender with Ganassi at one point. People forget about 2017. He had probably one of the more strongest cars out there. That was also the year he got multiple wins.
And now, on top of that, a lot of people were saying he was a championship contender in 2017, but he got knocked out at the round of 12.
And that's still my biggest concern, Kenny. As dominant as he is, will it translate into the postseason? That's the big mystery with me right now, because I said early in the year, Larson will win a race or 2, but round of 16, that's as far as he's going to end up. I don't know about my statement now. That was a bold prediction I had early in the year, though.
Now, he'll make the round of 2. that's how far I'll go. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that he's in a cloud of his own. And if there's
Yeah.
anything about Larson that I've learned this year is that he isn't overdoing it in terms of pressure. He's under a huge microscope. Well, that's what you're gonna. That's what's gonna happen when you're Kyle Larson. But he seems to be very content with all the performances that he's been driving, and that is what Larson has done. But it's not just Kyle Larson has reason for the success. It's his team. Hendrick Motorsports are the top team in the NASCAR Cup Series this year. And it's been a while since we were able to say that. Even in Chase Elliott's championship season last year, it was tough to say that Hendrick Motorsports was the top tier Cup Series team. One or two drivers could be good at Hendrick in your typical year of the 2010s. Going into 2020, that is, the last 5 years, I'd say. Pretty much since Johnson's last title. We know that one or two Hendrick drivers can be class of the season. But they're not going to be the best team.
Yeah, they were far from it, honestly. And now when you look at all four drivers in that Hendrick Cup, they're all young. Kyle has the most experience over Bowman. In the terms of Bowman has, in the beginning, didn't have the equipment to back it up. Larson at least has had Ganassi and Hendrick. So he knows the pressure. He knows kind of essentially lead a team. Larson jumps into Hendrick, and a team that's been dominant, that's been defined by Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr. over the years. Albeit Jr. was more or less the kind of like the status quo of NASCAR. From a competitive standpoint with Johnson and Gordon, of course.
Yeah.
Not saying that Jr. was never competitive. He had his couple seasons where he was really strong. But lost in that. But he had Johnson and Gordon. His team is even for that 09 Mark Martin. So, but for Hendrick, they have youth for the first time in a real long time, like in general. They didn't have like young kids and then the one professor guiding them. All of them are in the league of their own. And just a couple things on Bowman's end, more on the consistency side, and Elliott on the winning side. Don't be too surprised if Hendrick finds a way to have all four of their cars in a championship for. I think this might be the year we may see that. But a couple things need to be polished with Elliott and Byron. I mean, not Byron, Bowman. Yeah. Byron has been crazy consistent. Just needs to, like Larson at the beginning, rack up the wins. And then people will realize that the Byron-Fugo connection, what they saw in the Truck Series, is transitioning really well in the Cup Series. Because I always said this. Greg Biffle would have not won that truck race at Texas had it not been for Rudy Fugo.
True.
And I say that's the power of Fugo, and I think the power of Fugo is really working with Byron. They worked together before, but now it is really clicking. Because sometimes you just need somebody to connect right away. The question is, the years to come, will it stay that way? We'll see.
Well, that's where we're going to go now. Let's take a look at the results from round 17 of this 36 race championship from Nashville Superspeedway. The first time in 37 years that the Nashville market was able to host a NASCAR Cup Series race, and the first time in the track's history that we could see a Cup Series race at the Nashville Superspeedway in nearby Lebanon. Kyle Larson he won stage 2, led 264 of the 300 laps for his 10th career win. Yeah, it's kind of surprising that he finally reached double digits in the wins column. Now, let's talk about the second place here. Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain led 4 laps. He started in 19th and picked up a career best finish of second. Now, Ross, we're going to talk about him in just a minute. I just want to go through the results here because it gets even more impressive. William Byron, who started 4th, finished third, 1 spot better. Eric Almirola, who entered this race 28th in points. You cannot make this up. He was 28th in points. Picked up his 3rd career pole, led 1 lap, and finished 4th. A very needed top 5 for Almirola, and so for Kevin Harvick to help Stewart-Haas Racing and their confidence. Harvick started 12th. He finished 5th. A double top 5 for SHR. That's a rarity. So, believe it or not, is a double top 10. Or any result of something to be worthy of for an SHR car this year. It has been a tough season. And we know Ford leads in factory-supported teams. Stewart-Haas Racing is no longer king of Ford in 2021. Sixth place, this is another driver who needed a good run going into this race. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who started 14th. Stenhouse drove a steady race all day long. How about Daniel Suarez? Pitbull was in the house yesterday and was able to watch his driver bring it into the top 10 after Suarez started in 22nd. 8th place, Kurt Busch ended up winning stage 1 for reasons I'll let you know later. Kurt Busch led 3 laps and started 30th to finish 8th. He sputtered across the line out of fuel to get the job done. Made every lap count. Great job on the part for Chip Ganassi Racing. 9th place, Christopher Bell started 25th, finished 9th. And 10th place, Joey Logano, who started 3rd running at the top 10. Kyle Busch, who led 10 laps from the 2nd spot, finished 11th. Chase Briscoe, who finished 31st, led 5 laps, started 16th, ended up retiring from the race. Also out of the race was Chad Fitchum, who picked up a career best finish of 33rd. And 39th place, the driver who originally won stage 1 and led 13 laps from the 6th place starting spot, Chase Elliott. His car was disqualified from the race after failing post-race tech inspection. Well, those are your results, and I want to talk about some of the guys that I mentioned. Start with Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain's numbers have increased very, very steadily as the last month and a half passed through. It seems like the numbers of Ross Chastain's finishing position have only gone up from here on out, as well as the laps led. If there's any driver that could spoil the playoffs and the playoff grid that's already expansive of, I have no idea how many drivers have won. I think I think
it's 11 drivers now.
And we still have more races left than the amount of drivers that can get in through winning. Which explains the whole thing about the playoff system being critiqued for what it is. The thing I'm trying to say is that Ross Chastain could be the best contender to break and interrupt everybody else that hasn't won yet to get into the playoffs. If he wins a race, which is starting to become likelier by the minute, we're going into a track where he's won a 150-mile truck race at. So just take it for what it is. Not to mention that race will be happening twice in the weekend in the Cup Series at Pocono. But why was Ross Chastain so fast yesterday?
Truthfully, it's a matter of adapting to the track, and also just been, as the race went on, he's just got it. Things just clicked for him. Sometimes you just got to let the race unfold for Ross. I say for him to have that strong run, definitely needed. It probably bring motivation to the entire Ganassi team, because we've seen Kurt have good runs, just never had the luck on his side. Ross has just been there or nowhere near the picture. He's just not had the consistency, but slowly for surely, this run will help him. Will he make the playoffs? I think we have to put the brakes on it a little bit. We have to see how Pocono goes. He has that one Truck Series win, but I wouldn't, if he keeps the ball rolling in this summer stretch. I think people are going to realize why Ganassi finally decided to put Ross in that 42.
Yeah,
and why they had him in the first place before the whole DC Solar fiasco happened.
Danny, any thoughts?
I have to agree with Lewis here, man. A lot of people are gonna see why Ganassi gonna put Ross in the Cup car after that whole scandal with DC Solar, which we're not gonna get into. But Ross is most definitely someone that is gonna make the playoffs this year.
Well, I have to concur here because there are other drivers who could very well snag that extra spot into the playoffs. Let's not forget about the driver who finished 4th. He has had everything that could go wrong in the 2021 season, that, of course, being Eric Almirola. Now, Eric is in a really good spot in terms of confidence. He picked up his 3rd career pole in qualifying ran up front the entire race and completed the race in the top 5. His best finish of the year, no doubt.
First top 5 all year. He hasn't looked this competitive since Speed Weeks when he won the dual race.
Here's the unfortunate news.
Which is?
Eric Almirola is still 28th in the championship.
Yeah.
He's got to keep. Who's behind him right now? I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue to stay inside the top 30.
Corey LaJoie and Anthony Alfredo. Then Josh Bilicki, Quinn Half, James Davison.
He's fine. He's fine.
Yeah.
Listen, man.
And Davison didn't drove last Sunday, so he's out of the playoff picture.
Yeah.
Honestly, I hate to put it like this, but Eric Almirola is having a Danica Patrick season. Danica Patrick was the last driver who drove the 10 car for SHR. So,
and this is unlikely from Stewart Haas Racing.
Yeah, on the day, they had 2 cars in the top 5, but you have 2 cars that were out of it, Briscoe and Custer. Custer is still on par with what he was last year. Eliminate Kentucky out of this equation. He's still right around the same where he was a year ago. Floundering almost, not quite there yet. Mm-hmm. Briscoe is just going through the growing pains, realizing that the Cup Series is far different than the Xfinity. That's all it is with him right now.
I think it's like growing plants. It takes a while for the plant to grow. You can't expect, the plant to be its fullest when you just plant it. You have to let it grow. And the same would apply with the young drivers like Chase Briscoe and even Cole Custer, who's already has a year under his belt in the Cup Series. But let's go down the results for a few moments. Kevin Harvick, another solid top 5. I think he's probably the second best driver. Still 0 on the wins column. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Daniel Suarez, 6th and 7th place. These 2 drivers, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I'd say this is his the second home track for Stenhouse Jr., as he was partially raised in Tennessee. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. stayed in the top 10 all race long. He brought it home 6th, but just like, some of the other drivers I mentioned, like Ross Chastain and especially Eric Almirola, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is 18th in points, and he's got a lot of work to do. With inconsistent numbers, things have to turn around.
Yeah, with Stenhouse, he had a strong race all day long, probably his strongest he's had in a while, since probably the Bristol Dirt race. Because naturally, I even thought he had a shot at winning that one because of his dirt experience, and also probably because he has a dirt team as well, heavily involved into that stuff. But that's besides the point. I think that one was one of those where Stenhouse delivers, because when he stays out of trouble, keeps his car clean, there's some tracks that he's natural at. I look at Bristol. I look at the super speedways and all of that. Could perhaps Nashville be one in the future? Because I feel like if there's going to be guys that will spoil the party and make it in the playoffs, Stenhouse would not be an awful surprise considering the regular season finales at Daytona. And Daniel Suarez, I think Suarez will probably find a way, and I think more than ever, they have momentum, they have something going, because that 99 team going into 2022 don't have a charter. They sold it because in technical terms, the Colleague Racing, who got 2 charters from Spire, those being the 77 and the 99. You're wondering, wait a minute, the 99 is Trackhouse. How is that Spire? A year ago, what the 99 has right now, Suarez and Trackhouse, that's the 77 charter from the year before. What the 77 of right now that Justin Haley drives, that's the charter from the 95 team from Levine Family Racing the year before. That's why Spire, lack of better terms, had 3. Now they just have the one with Corey LaJoie, and that's the one they'll have next year. So, and they've said it this past weekend that the 99 team Trackhouse, whether they have just Suarez or that second car, they're going to run regardless. Time will tell if they're going to get a charter back. Maybe a win. We'll see something, because that 51 team that Rick Ware has could be in trouble.
NASCAR has warned them that they're in danger of their charter being lost.
Yeah, and that's definitely a concern.
That's an alarming moment right there. They better not put themselves in a position where qualifying in the races is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have Collie, you have GMS as well. That's been announced. The GMS are going to go into Cup Series.
These Cup Series races are going to get harder to make starting next year.
Well, yeah, we'll see how many will show up, but for sure, you're having a couple new entries, and who knows who will stick around, who will have to scale down as far as their the number of cars they're going to have. So perhaps say the 51 finishes bottom of the barrel again, and say the 99 wins. Could they probably put themselves in a position of taking it away from the 51, or they want to give it to somebody else? Because let's not forget the 37 of Ryan Preece doesn't have one. Will they be in the hunt, or will the 37 be around next year? Remember, 37 without the charter, they found no use of running the All-Star Open with Ryan Preece. So instead, Ryan Preece went to run some modifieds during that time. For those who were wondering where Ryan Preece go, that explains a lot, because since they're a non-charter team, they found no use of running it, because whether or not they were going to make it to the main event, they just felt like they couldn't afford a car being destroyed. They can't really afford, because their sponsorships as well.
It's just not
worth it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not worth it.
And here's the thing, though. That team will probably have a new driver by next year. You never know what the scope will look like by the time we hit to 2022. The conversations on that will definitely continue, but I do want to stick on the subject of this race, though, because I want to mention one more driver, and that is Daniel Suarez, who finished in 7th. Another solid performance by Daniel Suarez in the year 2021. What is going on with this team? How are they so good?
The people they have is pretty. For starters, the people they have. You have a competitor. You have Ty Norris. You have Justin Marks. Who I felt like for years, Justin will be that kind of owner that will transition really well from driver to owner. He has the brains. He has the people with him. And of course, with Pitbull, that added more money. With Pitbull's involvement, that's just added an even more bonus. It's just the people they have, who they're working with, and all that. And I think that is key. Yeah, when you look at 2311, they had the MJ money, and also the Gibbs Alliance and all that. But what we see from Trackhouse, I think is pretty simple. They just have the people around that gets it. They are determined and passionate on making the car better. And also you have a guy like Daniel Suarez, who we saw in the lower levels tear it up. And he's finally the focal point, not the third wheel, the fourth wheel, or taking over somebody else out of circumstances.
Exactly.
They're just well polished, and they're a single car team that are trying to go into 2. And same with 2311, but they've just been more consistent. They're learning by trying different things. Like at the beginning of the year, when there's green flag pit stops, Suarez usually stays out for a good while, which is fun. I find it interesting that a driver from Mexico can stay out for that long, get data, get resources, and maximize their tire wear.
I think that reminds me of another driver from Mexico.
And their fuel saving.
Yeah, it's Sergio Perez.
Exactly.
It's like this year alone is just sticking out more, because you're like, yeah, Perez leading all these laps, but when you look at the surface, that's because they're keeping him there. He knows how to save to where he can stay out as long as possible, and then bring him in, and then the role switch. But that was at the beginning of the year as far as I think that has helped. And also staying out of trouble for the most part. I think it's just one of those things where it's personnel. And I think that really comes a long way when you have the personnel that have experience and they know what they're doing.
You know what, Louis? One thing I would love to find very notable about both these new teams, 2311 Racing and Trackhouse Racing, is that the drivers are adjacent to each other in the point standings, 21st, 22nd, which really does say a lot about how they performed as a startup team with 2 drivers that have a lot of potential in their careers that want to keep their careers going. And I think let's not forget the factory support from both manufacturers, Chevrolet and Toyota, for their respective teams. That has definitely paid off. Well, I want to go ahead and talk about the championship standings because at one point, about 1 month ago, we were talking about how Denny Hamlin's well-put season has led to possibly him putting 100 points over everybody else in the championship. Well, that is off the table. It's gone off the table with Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson said goodbye to that 3-digit point gap you're about to put on me and everybody else, because now it's a 10-point gap. Larson, so it's 686 points going into it was the race 1 month ago. It was not Charlotte, but Circuit of the Americas. Then all of a sudden, Larson starts winning 3 in a row. Here we are. Come to think of it, 1 full month ago was the beginning of Kyle Larson's. Kyle Larson, if he wins again, he'll go a full month of winning all the Cup races. But yeah, 10-point
yes, Cup only. If we talk about dirt, that's a whole other animal.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
First, second.
It's like he doesn't know how to lose at this point. Sure, he has lost 1 or 2 dirt races, but essentially he doesn't know how to lose right now. He's just unstoppable.
I think his dirt success is finally translated on the asphalt. Kyle Larson is 10 points behind the championship leader, Denny Hamlin. William Byron is 81 points behind in third. Fourth place with the disqualification. Chase Elliott goes back to 94 points behind Denny Hamlin. Fifth place, Joey Logano, minus 108. Sixth place, Kyle Busch, minus 127. Busch is kind of catching up, but at the expense of Martin Truex Jr., who is minus 144. Kevin Harvick climbing up again, minus 169. Ryan Blaney, 9th, minus 176. And Brad Keselowski, who was my pick to win at the Nashville Superspeedway this weekend, had a bad race, and he drops down to 10th, minus 195. The next race will be at Pocono for rounds 18 and 19 of 36. Let's talk about the second-tier series now. We had all 3 of NASCAR's professional levels racing at the Superspeedway. So let's go ahead and get that up. And we had a major milestone. A historic. We were talking about how passion puts teams together and puts drivers in victory lane. Well, let's multiply that by 100, shall we? Because Kyle Busch did just that. Kyle Busch, the 2009 champion of the series, driver who, he was so good at one point. I should say it's a stupid joke, but he was so good at one point that the series named the Busch Series. Well, it really has been the Busch Series this whole time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series level, because he scored his 100th career win. We knew this was coming. Did we think that it was going to happen the way it did, how it took a little while? Not so much. It could have happened a few years ago had it not been for all the new added restrictions on Cup Series regulars coming into the series.
Yeah.
But Kyle did just that. And this wasn't an easy race to win either, even though he scored an Xfinity win. This is the second time he's done it at Nashville Superspeedway. The only difference is that this guitar he's bringing home is in one piece. Not the Pete Townshend ripped up guitar that he had from 2009 in Victory Lane when he took that thing and smashed it to the ground. No. Kyle Busch, his 100th career win. He won stage 2 at 122 laps. Let's not forget he scored the pole for the 70th time of his career. So another milestone. 70 career poles, 100 career wins. Those are Hall of Fame numbers. And on the impressive scale, how impressive do you think Kyle Busch's 100 wins are in this series?
The first thing that needs to be mentioned real quick is that he's not going to retire. I know a couple of years ago said if he gets to 100, he's going to retire running Xfinity. He still has 2 more at least. And I'll mention more about why I say at least later. But it's an opening can of worms situation, because some people say, oh, it's not impressive, he's leeching the competition and all that, but which they have their own right. I totally get that. I understand that. But there's always here the other side, that the drivers from the lower level want a Kyle Busch. They want to compete against him because they'll learn something and feel like their win will be as good. Brandon Jones outright Kyle Busch at the end of last year at Phoenix. That one was noteworthy. I think when you look at it, I think it's going to stand out a lot more, because some of them were not competition quality will factor in as well. But I think at the end of the day, it's a neat deal we see somebody win 100 races on a national level in this day and age. I think it's a neat deal. Do I think it's a super impressive? Time will ultimately tell. That's how I look at it, honestly.
I think Kyle Busch, getting 200 wins across the 3 series, I thought that was impressive. Even more than the 100 wins, but this is just as good to watch because we know this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to watch someone accomplish this. It's going to take a few decades to see numbers come like this, and I don't think we're ever going to see numbers like this anymore. Let's go back to 2003, 2004, when he started racing in the series. 2004 was the year he got his first win in the series. What was the culture of the series like? Much different than it was today. Than it is today. You had about a good 10 to 15 Cup Series drivers, some of which were probably racing for the championship in both series. It was encouraged that you go out there and make the most out of your weekends.
Yeah, and I think 04 was unique in a way because there wasn't really a Cup regular
Greg Biffle.
Other than Greg Biffle, but he missed races, so he was out of the equation.
I meant 05, 06, 07, 08. You had the latter.
That's where it kicked in.
Kicked in big time.
Early 2000s, you had the one or two guys that were run about 75% of the season, like Biffle did in 04, maybe a little bit more than 75, but you get the point. There was just guys that were hungry, that were trying to get back to the Cup Series or just trying to work their way to the Cup Series. You had parity. Last year in the Xfinity Series, you had parity. This year, I don't know. But back then, you had parity, like where, yes, you have a couple of races that you have a Mark Martin or the Roush guys essentially win races, and they're just going to be unstoppable. But when Kyle Busch was around, you also had Martin Truex Jr. as well. When Truex was like the second coming to Dale Earnhardt Jr. because that was his protege and all that. The competition was just different, and you were able to grow and develop. And also the Cup and Xfinity cars were, in many aspects, similar to where you had so many guys compete. That's why since then you see a little bit, but not as much because they're so different. The cars are vastly different. The rules package are different.
Yeah.
So it was just a whole different landscape. Which honestly leads me to say this about earlier about the retirement thing. I remember many years reading about it and hearing about it that Mark Martin was supposed to end his Busch Series career, now known as Xfinity, in 2000. Guess what? He came back, won more races. It took him a couple years to come back, but he still won. I feel like that may be the same thing with Kyle Busch, honestly, in my opinion. He's going to come back. Even though he has nothing planned for 2022, I think if that's it for Kyle and sticks to it, then I think everybody will rejoice. But knowing how racing is and looking back in past history, you never know. Very few have stuck to the decision like Jeff Gordon. But when I look back at Mark Martin in 2000, who was also supposed to wrap up his Busch career, he came back and still won.
I look at all the situations of the series. Kyle Busch started tearing it apart in the series. He actually had more competition then than he did in the last few years. When they started putting limits into the series of Cup drivers, I personally didn't like it. I would rather be bored with a batch of Cup Series drivers, tearing up the field, and knowing that there'll be some off weeks in between, and opportunities for drivers to fill in for those Cup Series slots to help those teams and owner points and all that. It just really made me feel like, hey, we could find more talent out of that pool, that gene pool. But at the same time, we're not putting the spotlight on the proper drivers. If this is supposed to be a number 2 series, it is certainly not serving the purpose. And that's how many fans thought as well. Also, let's not forget about 2015. Kyle Busch had that injury at Daytona. Sure, it ended in a championship, whether you guys agree or not. It's still a title. But Kyle Busch showed everybody that racing more than once, more than the series you're supposed to be in, can actually put you at risk.
Yeah, that's been the concern about any racing for that matter. That's why Hendrick for a while was hesitant of having their guys run elsewhere. Now he's been a little bit more open. That's what you see with Bowman and definitely Kyle Larson. I think I heard that once postseason comes along, then the focus will have to be in Cup because this could be Rick's best chance of the championship in a while. But I call it the Stefan Beloff method, where risk versus reward, to where the risk could actually hurt you. Or in Beloff's case, as Spa lost his life, that's where the restrictions kind of really kicked in. We're seeing a lot more drivers be diverse. I even told Santino Ferrucci at Media Day at Indianapolis 500, you think it's just going to be more open now? And he feels confident it's going to be more open to where it's not so restricted to you can only run at this discipline. You can't have fun anywhere else. We're seeing a tide changing. But yes, to a point, there's something's that risk. Like what happened with Kyle at Daytona.
Yeah, I definitely note that there's a lot of it's a double-edged sword in the end. But let's go ahead and talk about the race, because there was a race that happened on Saturday though. Kyle Busch had to hold off Justin Allgaier, who put on a major clinic.
Oh, most definitely.
Allgaier led 11 laps, started 11, finished second. Had the caution flags line up differently, we could have seen the 7 in victory lane. That's what I think. Harrison Burton started and finished third. Fourth place, Josh Berry started 22nd. He came home fourth. Fifth place was AJ Allmendinger, started and finished fifth. A very solid run for AJ, who had to be up and down. He was everywhere in the race. It wasn't all that steady, but he brought it home where he belonged, in the top 5. Brandon Jones started 7th, finished 1 spot better in 6th. 7th place went to Jeb Burton, other way around. Started 6th, finished 1 spot worse in 7th. Noah Gragson led 2 laps, started 10th, a very needed 8th place finish for a driver who's been up and down this year. 9th place, Austin Hill, started 15th, brought home in the 9th spot. And Riley Herbst rounded out the top 10. Daniel Hummer, who finished 13th, led 1 lap, started 4th, and Austin Cindric, an abysmal retirement. After being involved in a late race crash, Cindric won stage 1 and led 53 laps from the 2nd place spot. So for the regulars here, who are the winners and who are the losers?
Honestly, a Riley Herbst top 10 is a definite winner. Biggest loser, Brandon Brown, by far. You're trying to go to a playoffs. You have that other outlet that I will not mention, and that ridiculous-looking paint scheme. If you want to really stand out with sponsorship and all that, you run well. Then he said had a flat tire to where he had to sit up. That's really going to put a deep hole in as far as him making it to the playoffs by points, by far. That's, to me, the biggest loser of that whole ordeal. Hers, top 10 is always a win, but Allgaier showed once again that he could still be he's going to be a low-key threat.
Yeah.
And also Harrison Burton. Let's talk about Harrison Burton for a moment.
He's another favorite.
Well, not really in the favorite sense. The fact that he avoided Austin Cindric.
Right.
Good grief. Had Harrison hit Cindric, guaranteed that car will probably fly. That would have been a bigger wreck. The fact that Burton barely made it through, you saved yourself from a nasty wreck happening. And the same thing goes with Matt Mills, who barely avoided Stephen Parsons. So a big shout out to Harrison. As far as Allgaier, to me, is the standout winner. The loser, the goose egg in this one was Brandon Brown, as far as his playoff hopes.
Right.
Now, like the next series we're about to talk about, there's still a lot of time between now and the start of the Xfinity Series playoffs. So, yeah. Next race, we'll have the Pocono 225, round 16 to 33. Let's take a look at the championship standings, though, as we were starting to mention. Points after this race, Austin Cindric, while he crashed out, and while his closest opponents, AJ Allmendinger and Daniel Hemrick, were over 100 points, they are not that far back, but they're still far away. 628 points for Austin Cindric. Minus 90 is AJ Allmendinger, believe it or not. Daniel Hemrick who had a struggling race, gets into that 100-point deficit. But he stays in third. Harrison Burton, fourth, minus 127. Justin Allgaier climbs up to fifth. Allgaier's been on the run going up the standings ladder. He's just climbing the ladder. Minus 139. Jeff Burton, sixth, minus 171. Justin Haley climbs up to seventh, minus 173. Brandon Jones, eighth, minus 204. Noah Gragson up to ninth, minus 237. And Michael Annett rounds out the top 10, minus 240. So let's talk about the next series. And this is where it's going to get even more intense in terms of the playoffs and all that stuff. The Truck Series. Let me pull that up. So, for the first time since 2011, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series took the green flag at the Nashville Superspeedway. And for the first time since 2008, and the fifth time in series history, a driver wins on debut. Second time we've seen it across the National Series this year. Ryan Preece, who's racing to keep a professional stock car career alive, led 8 laps in his Hunt Brothers Pizza David Gilliland Racing Ford after starting 6th to score his first career win in his very first start. How'd he do it?
I think Prece's win in general is that it really stood out. Right, he really had to earn that one at the very end because you had Todd Gilliland in that mix, or he tried everything to catch him and just couldn't get the job done. That's essentially the Team A is battling because the DGR truck won the race. But when you look at the other one, it's sort of DGR, but it's under the Front Row Motorsports label.
Right.
I couldn't. That was a really impressive run, and I think it just lifted the confidence on Ryan as far as on the NASCAR national level is concerned, because he started off really good in the Cup Series, being a non-charter team, but he has not been there as of late. He's had some moments, and we'll have to look at the offseason because we'll see how it pans out. Could Preece be a hot commodity to maybe run somewhere? Could Ford see that performance like, we should look at this Ryan Preece guy, maybe give him a shot somewhere where we know he's going to be competitive and winning races? I think that was a good. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't really tell you how he was able to get it done. He just had a phenomenal showing, a really a strong confidence booster. Because when he has the truck, sure, DGR isn't necessarily the strongest truck in the series, considering some of the drivers they have excluding Todd Gilliland, they've had a woeful season. Deegan is going through growing pains and all of that. Tanner Gray, unfortunately, you don't hear much about him. He's been kind of MIA, to be honest with you. So this was definitely the needed performance and the driver to get it done. The question is, can they continue? That 17 truck is pretty much the multi-driver lineup. And I don't know. We'll see. It helps them over time, but we'll see how that 17 team does at home once Taylor Gray is back in the mix, whenever that will be, if at all.
Just by looking at everything that Ryan Preece has done in his career, I'm not surprised at all that he got that Truck Series win so fast. I think it was his first Xfinity start with Joe Gibbs Racing. He finished second at New Hampshire. And then a few races later with that team, he ended up getting his first win in Iowa. That was about 4 years ago. Ryan Preece, he's a driver racing to keep a career alive. There's a lot of passion and a lot of baggage that he's got. There's a lot of question marks for where he's going to be this time next year, this time tomorrow, really, if you think about it. But Ryan Preece, he did an outstanding job. Yes, he's a Cup Series regular, and yes, this was an upset win. The Truck Series consists of a lot of parity between young amateur drivers and professional semi-retired drivers, as well as veterans who've been racing in the series who choose to compete for championships on this level for their entire career. Ryan Preece had battled both of those kinds of drivers and came out on top. So well done for him. Let's talk about some of the finishers in this race, though. By the way, if you want to be statistically correct, this is the first win since 2019 Tyler Ingram that David Gilliland Racing has won. But if you want to also be like under the hood speaking, their second win of the year because of Todd Gilliland's win at Coda. Second place, Todd Gilliland. He had a rough night that ended good. He started 35th, brought home second. Grant Enfinger. He led 39 laps, started fourth, finished third. Zane Smith started ninth, finished fourth. Stuart Friesen led 5 laps, started 17th, finished fifth. Good run for Stuart. Sixth place, Matt Crafton. Matt Crafton started 15th. Ben Rhodes started 16th, finished 7th. Ty Majeski, how about Thorsport? They put a great race together. Third, 6th, 7th, and 8th. All 5 trucks in the top 10.
Yeah,
actually, Johnny Sauter.
Yeah.
Johnny Sauter, I meant. He was close. Austin Hill led 2 laps, started 13th, finished 9th. And John Nemechek, the points leader, who started 34th, brought it home to a salvageable top 10 finish. Jack Wood got his career best finish of 11th after starting 2nd. Chandler Smith won stage 2, led 48 laps, started 5th. Finished 13th. 35th place. A sad retirement for Derek Kraus, who picked up his first career pole, won stage 1, and led 48 laps. He was involved in a crash and also retired in 36. It was William Byron, who started 10th and made his first Truck Series start since his hopes to Miami Speedway win in 2016.
Derek Kraus, I tell you, a guy can't. It looked like everything was going to look finally going his way. He'll finally break through, and then he had a hard hit, not just once but twice. That was a heavy impact. Byron, I was surprised the truck gave up on it. It gave up, but like it had the problems. You got to think Byron, if he runs all those laps, he's probably going to be a contender for the win, maybe. But also in the transition to the Cup race, he probably could have been in the mix with Larson a lot more. He was, but not enough. But we'll never know.
All right. Well, I want to say, like, I asked us about the Xfinity race, and I kind of like this way how we talked about it. Who are the winners and losers of the Truck Series race?
Winner for me was definitely, I think I kind of alluded to it, Ryan Preece in general. Kind of discussed about how his career, his NASCAR season has gone so far. So this was definitely the confidence booster. Sword Sport could be considered overall as winners as well, based on their getting all of their trucks in one piece, because sometimes usually one or the other just flounders or not do well or wreck. Losers, definitely, I hate to say it, is Derek. Not what he needed. Not what he needed. What looked like positives. It's like everything was finally going to go his way. That's just, the wreck was not needed for him. That's not going to help his chances.
I would have to say the same loser. I have to say the loser would be Derek. Derek Kraus just did not have it going for him.
That was gunning. I think another driver that was considered a winner in my eyes was definitely Stuart Friesen, who's turning up the dial now. He's really starting to put a better season together now and has gotten used to the current format of how these race weekends are ran. I mean, he did very much better, obviously, with practice and qualifying, but that was wiped off the table. So he took a while to adjust to that. Now he's starting to adjust to it. I think he's doing better in the races where they have these practice sessions and qualifying, as with most drivers. Well, let's take a look at the championship standings now. After 12 races, so we're now in the second half of the season. We are, however, a handful of races away till those playoffs begin. There are now 3 races left. at 3 completely different tracks. Get into that in a minute. John Hunter Nemechek continues to pull away. John Hunter Nemechek's points lead 70 points over Ben Rhodes. Austin Hill is third, minus 98. Todd Gilliland is fourth, minus 129. Zane Smith is fifth, minus 136. Sixth place, Grant Enfinger, minus 155. Sheldon Creed, seventh place, minus 161. Matt Crafton, eighth place, minus 171. Stuart Friesen up to ninth, minus 191. And Carson Hocevar is 10th, minus 214. So, yeah, we'll talk about Pocono, which will be the next race. And 3 races left, 3 completely different racetracks. And when we go into race previews, we'll discuss that and the significance of the playoffs. All right, so NASCAR is out of the way. You guys ready to talk some Formula One?
Let's get to it.
All right. Let's get to some F1 action. We had a very interesting Grand Prix of France, and
For once, we did.
yeah, for quite some time, that's for sure. So, we had 3 leaders. They all finished in the top 3. And I tell you, that was an interesting turn of events. It was an interesting fast race, too, of an hour and 27 that elapsed the French Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, who scored his 5th career pole. He also got the fastest lap, picked up his 13th career win in his 48th career podium with a 2.904 second margin between first and second. Just another absolutely impressive win by Max Verstappen, and a great call by Red Bull. We need to talk about Red Bull for a moment. What did Red Bull do right? What did Max Verstappen do right? How did they get to the win?
They actually, strategy-wise, they were able to figure out what was going to work for them. Mercedes, on the other hand, they backfired a strategy where they should probably gone for 2 instead of probably 1, like they did. As they get and also conserving their tires, and also finding a way to cut the gap and minimize their tire wear. Because with Mercedes, they just lost it with their tire wear. They were worn out. You obviously hear it every time with, "Oh, Bono, my tires are dead." They just lost grip, and Red Bull was just quicker. They found a way to be quicker, utilize their tires better, and the strategy actually worked to their advantage. I couldn't have said it any better than that.
Well, one thing I noticed about Red Bull is they've executed greatly, and I'm very confident in them. Probably more so than ever. This is like we could possibly get back to the Vettel days of dominance. Maybe not as much as that, but it seems like the stick is heading in towards their direction, and they're keeping it that way. They're holding on to the throne. Beating Mercedes is a tall order, but I think we finally have 2 drivers in Red Bull that can get the job done. It seems like we've always had 1.5 drivers at Red Bull since Verstappen joined, or whenever since Vettel left. I meant.
Yeah, when after Vettel left in 2014, it was Ricciardo and Kvyat for a year and a third. Then it's been Verstappen and Ricciardo. Then when Ricciardo left, it was Verstappen, Gasly. Then they got rid of him and put Albon. That lasted through 2020. Now it's Perez and Verstappen. And I think for once with Perez, what he's paid to do is to prevent Mercedes from scoring maximum points. He did that to perfection this past Sunday. was able to utilize what he's known best that I alluded to when I was talking about Daniel Suarez earlier. He used that to his perfection. He finally put on a race weekend where he was consistent. Qualifying still is the one thing he needs to work on a little bit, either a little bit of qualifying or a little bit of practice. But this one was kind of like what you call an ideal race weekend, like as close to a complete package for Perez that he hit. Because that's been the thing about Perez. He does really good. Then qualifying usually dictates how he's going to do in the race. This one, he actually did better in the race itself rather than what he showed in qualifying. And he was able to beat Bottas on speed and also just as a whole. That podium, the double podium, is what they need to do. That's what they probably paid Perez. Go on.
I was just going to say, Perez has just been on the tier lately, man. Ever since that win at Azerbaijan, I think the momentum was just going to keep on rolling with Perez. Will he be a world championship favorite? Probably not. But the consistency is there.
Yeah, I don't think now, unfortunately, I don't see that ever happening, unfortunately, as much as I'm big on Perez. But Constructors' Championship, that was what they got to keep doing. If you're going to stop Mercedes, you need Perez to deliver, and he did this Sunday. Sure, yeah, he got the win in Baku due to all of the circumstances, but had Verstappen not crashed at Baku, we would have had back-to-back double podiums for Red Bull. So it was a long time coming, essentially. So that's definitely what they did, and Verstappen really redeemed himself, because sometimes when Verstappen has his moments, it bites him. In the first corner, it did. But over time, and it's with the strategy, he put on a master. He did what he knows how to do, put on a masterful drive. And this time, in dry conditions, because we usually talk about, he's mastering the weather. This one, he just did it on merit, and also, but that was an overall team effort. A team effort win, bar none. And sometimes you need that in Formula One.
Oh yeah, what a confidence booster that was, no question. Let's take a look at the results now. So we mentioned Verstappen. Now, Lewis Hamilton came home second. He picked up his 170th career podium. He started second. Sergio Perez finished third. He led 5 laps, started fourth. His 12th career podium. And that means Red Bull get double points. Fourth place, Valtteri Bottas started third, which means Mercedes gets double points along with Red Bull. Fifth place, Lando Norris started 8th. Who started 16th? That was Daniel Ricciardo. In 6th, McLaren get double points. 7th place, Pierre Gasly started 6th. 8th place, Fernando Alonso started 9th. 9th place and 10th place. How about for the first time in history of the constructor, Aston Martin get double points. Vettel 9th and Stroll 10th. Great runs for those guys. So outside the points, who fell short? Well, Ferrari, no points at all. Carlos Sainz Jr. 11th. He started 5th. George Russell finished 12th after starting 14th. Yuki Tsunoda 13th after starting in 20th. 14th place, Esteban Ocon, the driver who raced in his hometown in front of a hometown crowd. Started 11th, finished 14th. 15th place, Antonio Giovinazzi, who started 13th. And 16th place, no points for Charles Leclerc. Leclerc started 7th. 17th place, who started 17th, Kimi Räikkönen. 18th place, Nicholas Latifi after starting 16th. 19th place and 20th place were the Haas F1 drivers and Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. So, yeah, 53 laps, 11 cars finished on the lead lap. Max Verstappen had the fastest lap pole time. That was at 89.99 seconds by Max Verstappen. So what does the World Championship look like after this race? Well, let's take a look at the World Drivers' Championship. The margin between first and second is now 12 points. Max Verstappen has 131 points going into the next race. Second place, Lewis Hamilton, who has 119 points. Third place, Sergio Perez, with 84 points. Fourth place, Lando Norris, who continues his perfect point streak alive, 76 points. Fifth place, Valtteri Bottas with 59 points. Sixth place, Charles Leclerc with 52 points. Seventh in points, Carlos Sainz Jr. with 42 points. Eighth place, Pierre Gasly with 37 points. Daniel Ricciardo, ninth place with 34 points. And rounding out the top 10, Sebastian Vettel with 30 points. And let's look at the World Constructors Championship, shall we? Red Bull Racing Honda with 215 points. Second place, Mercedes with 178 points. Third place, McLaren Mercedes with 110 points. Into double digits we go. In fourth place, Ferrari, 94 points. Fifth place, AlphaTauri Honda, 45 points. Sixth place, Aston Martin Racing Mercedes with 40 points. Seventh place, Alpine Renault, 29 points. Eighth place, Alfa Romeo Racing Ferrari with 2 points. And then with 0 points include Williams Mercedes and Haas Ferrari. I still have some predictions that are coming along this season, and that includes a win for McLaren to end their near 9-year winless drought, and George Russell to finally get points for Williams. But I don't see any of these things happening anytime soon, looking now at the season.
Yeah, my bold prediction that I set up for myself earlier in the year was Mick Schumacher will get a single point. I don't know what it's going to take for Haas to get a point, but I said Mick will get one. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. It's going to take a lot for that to happen, honestly. And going into the quote-unquote double at in Austria, I don't see that happening.
Nah.
The reason why you saw that attrition because you have is what you call the season opener attrition, where there's like a large number amount. This season, Bahrain, we didn't really see much. And if we talk about France, all 20 finished. It's not that really difficult considering the French Grand Prix is a wide enough track to where you don't really have. It did look like for a while we might with all these incidents, but I'm getting besides myself on that. But I just want to bring up the bold prediction about Mick getting a point. Doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. Russell, maybe. He did. He said it himself from what I read. It's probably his best run he's ever had in a Williams. And I can agree on that. It's like, not bad. He actually put it inside the top 12. Can he get a point? Time will tell. For Williams, that is.
And they haven't scored a point since Robert Kubica at Germany in 2019.
Yeah, they haven't scored one outright without penalties because the last 2 times they got points, they were as a result of penalties. Sergei Sorokin's lone point was a result of a double DQ from Haas. And Kubica, it was a penalty for Hamilton,
Alfa
I believe.
Romeo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Alfa Romeo, thank you. So it's been a while they scored a top 10 outright. You got to go back to 2018 for that to happen, when it happened, excuse me.
It is definitely been a difficult one. So let's move on from one single-seater series to the other. And of course, would be IndyCar. The second half of 2021 begin this weekend, or last weekend, in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, beautiful Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, for the running of the Road America Grand Prix, the Rev Group Grand Prix. And it was an interesting race, to say the least. We saw heartbreak for a Team Penske driver once again, and we also seen another change in the championship lead in this national championship for 2021. Alex Palou, who led 5 laps after starting 5th, ended up taking the win, his second career win and his 6th career podium for Chip Ganassi Racing. What happened? How did Palou get to the winner's circle again?
Oh man, that is talk about heartbreak. You can't get any heartbreak than having the race in the palm of your hands. The cautions really didn't help because that's what the telecasts were driving at home. That those restarts are not helping. It's like Newgarden wanted probably would have wanted this whole thing to go green the rest of the way. These cautions were not helping them. And especially the last one where a right rear suspension of Ed Jones broke, spun it. Only one lap under yellow, but the advantage of Road America being a 4+ mile circuit is that cautions will go quick. Gearing. He tried to shift it into 6th gear, couldn't get it. It was stuck in 5th, and then it just could not go. Palou had a strong car, and I don't think he was able to. I don't think he was going to catch Newgarden if it stayed green the rest of the way. But he had looked like a little bit at some point he was gonna. But it fell on the lap of Palou. He got his 2nd win of the season. Now he extends his championship lead to Pato Award to 28 points. So he's now back on top of the championship. And the big thing is he's just taking it a race at a time. You'll look at the points, but not really think about it much at all. I asked that question after the 500. Of course, the 500 was naturally going to be the big deal. But, of course, yeah, it was a heartbreak loss for him because he was 2 laps away from winning it. But he also took the championship lead, so kind of consolation prize. But now that he has the win and the championship lead again, the mindset's still the same. Just focus on the next one, which would be Mid-Ohio. But below Mid-Ohio success doesn't really surprise me because that was the first break. That was the breakthrough race for him. He broke through with that Dale Coyne car last year with a podium, the first time he ever been there. So naturally, a strong result was expected, but the winning, not necessarily, because that did look like Newgarden's again. And with Newgarden, he finished at demoralizing. Where did he finish? 21st. He was basically the last car running. Not what he needed. As far as the championship, you could put a fork on that. Penske are still winless, with just only 7 rounds to go.
Well, I think just by looking at all the performances that happened,
because this championship will look much different if willpower, if the red flag never happened at Belle Isle 1, Belle Isle 2, if cautions and the late race cautions have not helped. Not helped.
Not at all.
That's what they don't want. In fact, if you're a dominant car, you're not necessarily guaranteed to win. What is it, like 6 straight races now? The driver with the most laps didn't even win. That's a stretch. That is a stretch. If you're all wondering already who led the most laps in the Indianapolis 500 this year, Connor Daly. You saw what happened. Well, obviously, what happened. Connor, he hit the wheel of Graham Rahal that came off. Not a factor for the rest of the way. So it's been quite an unpredictable IndyCar season, but we're still seeing Ganassi as the team to beat once more.
All right, let's think of the results now. So, 2nd place, Colton Herta, who finished 2nd. He started 2nd, his 6th career podium. 3rd place, Will Power started 4th, 83rd career podium for Power. 4th place, Scott Dixon led 1 lap, started 13th. 5th place, Romain Grosjean started 7th. Marcus Ericsson finished 6th after starting 18th. Alexander Rossi had an eventful day. He started 9th, finished 7th. Takuma Sato led 2 laps, started 20th, finished 8th. Patricio Ward, the points leader, started 10th and finished 9th. He loses the championship lead, so no more Pato, the championship leader. It's Alex Palou. In 10th place, Max Chilton, who led 7 laps and started 22nd. Oliver Askew led 2 laps, started 16th, and finished 12th in his Ed Carpenter Racing debut. Cody Ware, who started 25th in his IndyCar Series debut, finished a solid 19th, completed all the laps. 21st, unfortunately, was Joseph Newgarden, who led 32 laps, got the points for most laps led, and hit his 13th career pole, finished an abysmal, heartbreaking 21st. And Kevin Magnussen, who made his IndyCar Series debut, led 6 laps, started 21st, and retired, finishing 24th. All right, so who do you think were the winners and losers of this race?
Well, definitely the big winner in that whole ordeal had to be obviously Palou and Colton. Actually, take that back. Colton Herta and Will Power. Will Power has luck has not been his thing essentially the last several years. He hasn't had a podium in a while for Will, so having a clean race, nothing happened to him, nothing that kind of bit him in the bit him at all. So getting a third was much needed. Their momentum is slowly shifting a bit. Colton Herta, he hasn't had a podium since he dominated St. Petersburg. Both of them had those confident boosters, and they had a quite solid run. The biggest losers, honestly, will have to go to Kevin Magnussen and, honestly, the people, Simon Pagenaud and Connor Daly. Pagenaud and Connor Daly, because they were okay, but the fact that they were at the tail end of the lead lap at the end, it was honestly appalling to me. And the reason why I say Kevin Magnussen as the ultimate, because I know circumstances, he didn't have much time, he had to quickly learn. But I was hoping he was going to make it through without any problems happening. So it was a tough break for that 7 team that, again, have another DNF into their name. That's 3 straight races that the 7 team has failed to finish. That's not what you want at all, period.
No. Well, I think let's talk in terms of the championship. Is it all safe to say that Plow is going to get it, or
no guarantees. There's no guarantees yet. I think Pato can still get it. We'll see how. The big question, honestly, the big mystery will be Nashville. We got Mid-Ohio in a couple weeks. That should be somewhat interesting. But you got Nashville coming up, and then of course Gateway, and another trip to Indianapolis. These are still wide. Not wide open, but I still think this championship you can't really say who's the true favorite, because if Newgarden was able to capitalize, maybe we'll say Newgarden. But you still have a couple guys in the mix that should be up there eventually, but they just need momentum and nothing else happens to them for the rest of the year. Otherwise, it's going to be Pato and Alex and maybe Scott Dixon in this championship. Colton is still borderline yet, as far as momentum is concerned.
Yeah, because he had some bad races, and now Colton, he's got to catch up. And time is not on anybody's side right now. If you're not in the top 3 in points, you're pretty much on a major deficit.
Yeah, and IndyCar, if you want to be right in the mix, you just do not want to have one bad race. You could probably have one non-top 10, maybe 2, but you want to be in the mix all season. You don't want to have any issues, because that's how you separate the title contenders and the would-be contenders in IndyCar, especially this year. We'll see in the next couple of races. We'll see if we have a true title contender. Right now, it's Alex and Pato with Dixon as the wild card, borderline Herta, semi-borderline to probably in danger as Newgarden.
All right. So let's move on and talk some Formula E now before we go ahead and get into supercars. Let's go ahead and discuss everything that happened at Puebla. An eventful and controversial E-Prix took place. And by the way, let's not forget, a lot of people seem to have forgot or have no idea that this was the first major FIA World Championship caliber race held in the Americas across the Atlantic Ocean since COVID began last year. Let's talk about race 1. Lucas di Grassi for Audi led an Audi 1-2 finish in major controversial fashion. Rene Rast finished second in the sister Audi. Rene Rast got the fastest lap, so he gets an extra point. Eduardo Mortara, huge weekend for him in the Venturi Mercedes. He finished third after starting 15th. Great outing for Eduardo Mortara. Alexander Sims 4th, Jake Dennis 5th, Antonio Felix da Costa 6th, Stoffel Vandoor 7th, Mitch Evans 8th, Nick DeVries and Alex Lynn rounded out here points paying positions. Now, as for the controversy in race 1, we had Pascal Wehrlein, the Porsche driver, Pascal Wehrlein. The Tag Heuer Porsche Formula E team. How do I explain it? There was a technical infraction committed by two teams, Nissan Edam and Porsche. And what happened was the original driver who won the race, physically winning the race, was Pascal Wehrlein, Porsche driver. Andre Latour finished 16th. Their positions were swiped. However, Pascal Wehrlein still comes out with points for being fastest in this group stage and for getting pole position. So it wasn't all that bad, but it's still painful to have a win being taken from you one way or the other. And Nissan Edam drivers, Sebastian Buemi and Ollie Rowland, who retired, were also disqualified. So there you have it. Race 2. Race 2 ended up being Eduardo Mortara. Mortara doing just a fantastic job this year. A very, very likable driver, I'd say. By the fans, Mortara finished first. Nick Cassidy, first career podium, he finished second. Third place, Ollie Rowland, and third. Now, Rowland did get points for being on pole position. Pascal Wehrlein, 4th. Jake Dennis, 5th. Now, Jake Dennis had... Actually, no. Jake Dennis... Yeah, Jake Dennis had fastest in group stage. Alexander Lynn, 6th. Maximilian Gunter, 7th. Jean-Eric Verne, 8th. Mitch Evans, 9th. And Rene Rast, right out the top 10. Rast had the fastest lap. So let's take a look at the World Championship standings for Formula E after rounds 8 and 9 were complete. Eduardo Mortara takes the World Championship lead by 10 points over Robin Frijns. So 72 points. So Robin Frijns is back to second with 62 points. Tied for third, 4th, and 5th with 60 points each. Antonio Felix da Costa, Rene Rast, and Mitch Evans. Now, into the team's championship we go. How about the factory Mercedes team holding the charge? A 3-point lead for the Mercedes EQ Formula E team, 113 points. Second place, 3 points behind the Mercedes. Of course, we have DS Cheetah with 110 points claimed. Third place is Jaguar Racing with 109 points. Fourth place is the Audi Sport ABT Schaeffler Formula E team with 99 points. And fifth place, the number 437 entry of Envision Virgin Racing with 96 points. So there you have it. The next race for Formula E will be the New York City E-Prix. Yes, on the 10th and 11th for July, we'll have rounds 10 and 11. of 15. Should be a great race weekend for sure when the time comes. All right, let's talk some supercars, shall we? The Darwin Triple Crown took place over the race weekend for week number 5 of the 11-week campaign, and rounds 12, 13, and 14 of a 28-race championship scavenger. We'll go ahead and talk about the 3 races that happened over the weekend. We'll start with race 1, race 2, and then we'll transfer over to race number 3. So the Darwin Triple Crown at the famous Hidden Valley Raceway at Darwin, Northern Territory didn't fail to disappoint at all. In fact, it was an interesting first race. I think the first race usually doesn't get as exciting as the second and third one, but this year around, it was absolutely just awesome to watch all around, all together. So for race 1, not race 1, that's race 2. Race 1, it was not Shane Van Gisbergen, although it could have been him. He came very close to getting it, but pit road problem out of his control prevented that from happening. Chaz Mostert, at 13 laps, he started 8th, picked up his 15th career win, his 63rd career podium. Well done for Chaz. Chaz Mozzie's got a new contract extension for Waukesha and Georgia United, a multi-year extension for Chaz Mostert. Second place, Cameron Waters led 4 laps, started 7th, his 24th career podium. Third place, running up the podium, we had Brad Jones Racing's Nick Percat after starting 5th. It was his 12th career podium. 6th place, Will Brown started 22nd. Very impressive climb towards the front. 5th place and 6th place. How about these 2 guys for the Kostecki's? Career best finish of 5th for Jake Kostecki and Kirk Kostecki. Career best finish of 6th. And they finished next to each other with the same award in hand. Now that's something cool to be part of the Kostecki family. Tim Slade, who started 9th, finished 7th. Brody Kostecki, who started 13th, finished 8th. Thomas Randall 9th, and James Courtney rounded out the top 10. Shane Van Gisbergen, who I mentioned earlier, led he only led 21 laps, and he started 3rd. Anton De Pasquale, who scored his 3rd career pole, never even made it past turn 1 after an early race accident took him out, as well as a few others.
Yeah, speaking of this Pasquale for a moment, it's been. I saw more of the 3rd race than the 1st and the 2nd. He said, "Is it me or is he just having a rough transitional year?" Because remember, this is the car that McLaughlin drove for championships, right? Because Davidson was there last year.
Correct.
Yeah, what I saw from it is you don't want to be having those mistakes, especially self-driver error, if you're in a team that's won championships and have when you look at the surface, that did not look good to me at all. It's you probably don't want to have that, especially when you are pressured to deliver, considering the driver before you was the man to beat. But obviously, the man right now is Van Gisbergen, for sure. He's probably has that championship to a T, unless something dramatic happens over the next couple of races and rounds.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about race 2 and race 3. Race 2 and race 3 were all in the hands of Shane Van Gisbergen. As for race 2, Shane led 25 laps, started 2nd, his 97th career, his 47th career win and his 128th career podium. We're not there yet, obviously. But Shane Van Gisbergen, he's knocking on the door for 50 wins. That's for sure. Second place, Will Davison, his 19th career pole and his 63rd career podium. Third place went to Jamie Whincup, who led 6 laps, started 6, and scored his 257th career podium. Fourth place, Chaz Mostert started 8th. Fifth place, Mark Winterbottom started 4th. Anton De Pasquale picked up for the lost ground in race 2 after he started 3rd. Cam Waters led 1 lap, started 7th, finished 7th. Will Brown started 5th, finished 8th. Nick Percat started 10th, finished 9th. And James Courtney, who started 16th, rounded out the top 10. Scott Pye, who led 6 laps, started 9th, finished 13th. Race 3. Let's talk about race 3 before we get into the points here. Once again, Shane Van Gisbergen picks up his 48th career win and ties Peter Brock on the all-time wins list. That's a special comparison to make. To have anything on the same sentence as the King of the Mountain, Peter Brock, means that you are a piece of history. You're part of history, pretty much. Will Davison picked up his 20th career pole in race 3 and his 64th career podium. Third place, 258th career podium for Jamie Whincup. As we know, Jamie Whincup is in his last year as a full-time driver in supercars. We'll see how Triple Eight goes about this. Fourth place, Chaz Mostert again. Fifth place, James Courtney led 8 laps, started 5th, finished 5th. Nick Percat started 8th, finished 7th, finished 6th. Mark Winterbottom 7th. Cam Waters 8th. Tim Slade 9th. Will Brown 10th. Scott Pye, who led 2 laps, finished 16th. So let's take a look at the championship standings. After 5 weeks of racing, we pretty much have the second half of the season starting pretty soon. Shane Van Gisbergen is in a world of his own. He's got 1,361 championship points over Jamie Whincup, who's in second. He has 1,140 championship points. Third place, Chaz Mostert, or actually 1,140 for Whincup. Mostert has 1,131. Will Davison fourth with 1,087 points. Fifth place, Cam Waters with 1,064 points. Now let's take a look at the team's championship. Triple Eight Race Engineering, they're gone. They have 2,501 points. Second place, Dick Johnson Racing with 1,849 points. Third place, Tickford Racing with 1,808 points. Fourth place, Walkinshaw Andretti United with 1,794 points. And fifth place with 1,551 points, Team 18, formerly known as Charlie Schwarkel Racing. So next time these guys race will be the Townsville 500 for rounds 15 and 16 of 28, week 6 of 11 on the 10th and 11th of July. So these guys will have some time off to think, hey, what can I do to get around Shane Van Gisbergen? All right. Ready to talk about some of the other races that happened over the weekend? Because we got a few.
Yeah, don't we have SRX to talk about a bit?
Sure, but before that, what did the guy that won the first SRX race do this weekend?
Did he do some modifieds?
Exactly, he tore it apart. Doug Kobe led 149 laps over everybody else to win the Riverhead 200 for round 6 of 14. Just an outstanding drive by Doug Kobe.
Yeah, for sure. I planned to watch that one, but for whatever reason, they had a weather delay, and the streams just would not load after that because I was going to plan to go check it out because I was intrigued how Kobe was going to do because he went from second to 8th in points because of going to Stafford to run the SRX race. So it sounded like it was comes back and keeps on wrecking those W's, which will be key if he wants that 7th championship.
Well, absolutely. That's how you do it. And that's exactly the way you want to go about the season. But he's in the hunt. No question he's not in the hunt. You know why? Let's just take a look for a minute here. Let's just go through the top 5 real quick. So Patrick Emmerling, the points leader, finished second. Third place, Justin Bonsignor led the only other laps of the race besides Kobe at 51. Fourth place, Ronnie Selk. In fifth place, Anthony Nocella. So in the championship standings, this is what I mean that it's not over at all for Doug Kobe. Patrick Emmerling has a 3-point advantage over Justin Bonsignor. Behind by 36 from Emmerling is Tommy Catalano. Fourth and fifth place tied, minus 41, is Doug Kobe and Woody Pitcat. So, I mean, look at how much points he barely lost by missing one race. And what would have happened to Kobe in points had he ran last week instead of SRX? Championship lead. No question. It's exactly how it would have done him. Just look at the math. So, there you go. Next race they have is the famous New Hampshire 100, which will be part of the NASCAR Cup Series weekend next month on July 17th for round 7 to 14 to close the first half of the Modified Tour. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Superstar Racing Experience, the SRX, in the 6-week showcase. The second leg was in the first time in dirt in our search history at Knoxville Speedway, or Knoxville Raceway. I know the SRX was a fan favorite amongst many to watch for the first go-around at Stafford Springs. What did you guys think about SRX on the dirt?
It held itself quite well, honestly. I think 50 was the perfect laps. The cautions not counting worried me a bit because that was the way. Probably ain't no way they're going to fit and make it to that TV window. But ultimately, it worked up just fine. And sure, you had a couple drivers that never raced on dirt or haven't really had enough experience running on dirt. But the question was, how would Scott Bluequist, Brian Brown, and Haley Deegan were going to fare? Well, they have probably one of the more, not named Tony Stewart, one of the more experienced backgrounds in dirt. Mostly Bloomquist and Brown, because they were the more accolades. Deegan, she might have won that one race at Las Vegas at the Bull Ring, but people forget that race was mostly Jagger Jones and Derek Kraus before Deegan showed up at the very end with some assist from Kenny Boombera's mobile chicane antics. That's a different story for another time. It was a fun race, still a fun race. Paul Tracy couldn't keep it off the turn 4 wall if it liked dependent on it. And Bill Elliott just can't, fueling has not been his thing for whatever reason so far. Hopefully at Eldora, it turns out a little bit better for him.
Yeah, and you know, it's fun watching these guys that are household names for so many years race together on the track. That's just a great showcase. But let's take a look at the results that happened. So, Tony Stewart, the owner of the series, took the win for round 2 at Knoxville Raceway. He won en route to this win. Second place, Haley Deegan, who finished second in the race. Third place, Ernie Francis Jr., the Trans Am driver. Fourth place, Elio Castro Neves. And fifth place, Michael Waltrip.
Mikey had a great run. He had a tremendous run. Deegan probably had the most well-polished race I've seen so far. Strong performer. Didn't use her chrome horn at all. It was well-paced. But Mikey really had a great showing, especially
for sure.
For Tony
I was pulling for him. I wanted to see Michael Waltrip try to do something on Tony Stewart's lead. He came close a few times.
Well, certainly did. It felt like 2003 all over again when Mikey was competitive and Tony was still. I don't know. Tony being Tony. There you go. Let's put it.
Hey, it kind of reminded me of the NASCAR Thunder 2004 game cover between Stewart and Michael Waltrip.
Good point. Good point, because I haven't thought about it in a minute. But no, for sure, it was Stewart, to my surprise, he never won Knoxville. Which I was like, wait, you tell me he wanted a venue he's never won before? I thought he's won them all so far. But hey, never late to do it in the SRX, which is so far has been really good. Some people will enjoy for what it's kind of one of those enjoy for what it's worth and not take it too serious.
Exactly, that's what the SRX should be. Last but not least, Scott Bloomquist won Heat 2 and finished 9th in the main feature. So let's take a look at the championship standings, shall we? Tony Stewart is the points leader now. He has 82 points scored. Second place, Elio Castro. Ernie Francis Jr., 71 points. Third place is Elio Castro Neves, 58 points. Fourth place, Bobby Labonte, 55 points. In fifth place, Michael Waltrip with 45 points. So, next race these guys have it's all consecutive weeks. Eldora Speedway for race 3 of 6, which we'll see these guys run on dirt once again.
Yep, and Eldora should be interesting. If they held their own in Knoxville, I think we're probably going to be in for an exciting show down there. And I think if I recall, Scott Speed is going to make his SRX debut there too.
At Knoxville. Eldora.
Eldora. Yeah, we're talking about Eldora.
Tony Swanson.
That one. Circle that one. Here's why. If Swanson wins that thing, kind of like with Doug Colby, I feel like the Swanson one would be even significant. Because I feel like Cody Swanson, in a time where you pretty much have to go through the road to Indy to have any shot of making it to the 500 now, Cody Swanson is a throwback to where had Swanson been doing everything he's done in the 1970s or 80s, he'd be in Indy 500. He'd been running. Now, a guy like him should be at Indy. That's why people clamor to Brian Clausen so much, because he's one of the few that has actually broke the mold in modern times. I still am hopeful that'll happen, but at this point, you just gotta have to go through the road to Indy. And Swanson has done some super late models, pro late models. He's held his own quite well. He's not that bad. He's at it either. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Swanson will do, because a win for him will do him absolute wonders. It
would send a message.
And we'll see how it pans out, because Brian Brown struggled. he struggled in that type of car at Knoxville. We'll see how it translates for Swanson. I'm hoping quite well.
We'll see where things go. It's gonna be fun to watch. That's for sure. All right. Let's move on. I forgot to take out the banner from Supercars. One more race we had, and this was definitely an emotional one. MotoGP, the German Grand Prix, was held in the Sachsenring. And what more can I say than welcome back to Supremacy, Marc Marquez. It's been a long time coming for the Spaniard, who won 6 championships from his very first start in MotoGP in 2013, and all that. His 57th career win. He had that horrifying injury at the start of the MotoGP championship last year, and between 581 days from 2019 through 2021, Marc Marquez and the Repsol Honda team are back where they belong, on the top step of the podium. Congratulations to Marc Marquez on a terrific comeback. This is why you never give up. You see stories, they always repeat the same message. It's just a great sight to see. Second place was Miguel Oliveira, who had the fastest lap. Fabio Quartararo third. Brad Binder fourth. Francesco Bagnaia fifth. And John Zarco, the pole sitter, finished in 8th. Let's take a look at the rider standings after 8 races. Fabio Quartararo continues to lead in the championship with 131 points. John Zarco, so the French one too, is second, so 109 points for Zarco. Jack Miller third with 100 points. Francesco Bagnaia fourth with 99 points, and Joan Mir is fifth with 85 points. The Constructors' Championship has changed, but it's not that far away from changing again. Yamaha lead the Constructors' Championship with 159 points. Second place is Ducati with 154 points. That's a 5-point margin. KTM is third with 103 points. Suzuki is fourth with 89 points. Honda is fifth. Their first win of the year was with Marc Marquez yesterday, 77 points. And Aprilia is sixth with 54 points. In the Teams Championship, Monster Energy Yamaha MotoGP continue to lead with 206 points claimed after 8 races. Second place, the Ducati Lenovo team with 199 points. Third place is Pramac Racing, another Ducati team. They have 136 points. Fourth place is the Red Bull KTM Factory Racing team with 30 points. And fifth place is Team Suzuki X-Star with 113 points. Next race these guys have will be upcoming this weekend, the Dutch TT Assen at TT Circuit Assen for round 9 of 19. We'll be halfway done with the season after next week. All right, that's it for all the races that we had to look back on. Now let's take a look at what's upcoming. We have a lot of races coming up. Let's take a look at what we have. We'll talk some NASCAR, Pocono, doubleheader for the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series will be racing all 3 series at Pocono this weekend. We'll also discuss the Formula One Styrian Grand Prix in Austria, an event that will fill the void for the missing date that Canada was supposed to host, as well as the Turkish Grand Prix that was supposed to replace Canada's lost weekend. So here we are, a back-to-back bout at Austria at the A1 Red Bull Ring. Sports car endurance racing. We got some events coming up for you sports car fans out there. With the return to the 6 hours of Watkins Glen, race 3 of 4 in the Endurance Cup, and it's for the IMSA Championship. That will be round 5 of 12. And the first race of the post-Nürburgring 24-hour portion of the NLS, formerly known as VLN season, will begin this weekend with the Nürburgring 4 hours. Let's start with NASCAR at Pocono, and let's talk about some of the history of this race. So this is the Pocono doubleheader for the second year in a row. We have a doubleheader at Pocono. Rounds 18 and 19 of 36. Last year's winners were Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin, ironically the 2 best drivers, with 0s on the win column.
I can honestly see one Harvick maybe being the guy, one or the other being the guy. I just don't see it coming into fruition per se. I think a Gibbs guy will really stand out and turn his season around, and another one will finally come into fruition. It's like, hey, look, I've been strong, and now it's my turn to win some more races.
Take a look at the history of this race. So as I mentioned, the winners from last year. The first race was held in 1974. Richard Petty took the win. So last year, Denny Hamlin took over or tied Jeff Gordon for most wins at the event. 6 wins for Denny Hamlin and Jeff Gordon. Bill Elliott, 5 wins. Tim Richmond and Rusty Wallace, as well as Darrell Waltrip, 4 wins. Bobby Allison, Kurt Busch, Jeff Bodine, Kyle Busch, Dale Jarrett, Jimmy Johnson, Bobby Labonte all share 3 wins. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Carl Edwards, Harry Gant, Casey Kane, Terry Labonte, Jeremy Mayfield, Richard Petty, Tony Stewart, Kelly Yarbrough, and Martin Truex Jr. all share 2 wins. Let's take a look at the at the summer race. For most wins by a team, Hendrick Motorsports 11. Joe Gibbs Racing 7 wins. Team Penske as well as Stewart-Haas Racing 3 wins each. Dygar Motorsports, Robert Yates Racing, and Furniture Row Racing 2 wins. As for most make wins in the summer race at Pocono, Chevrolet 18 times they've won. Ford 11 times they've won. Toyota 5 times they've won. Buick as well as Pontiac 2 wins. Oldsmobile and Dodge 1 win. So there are your numbers for the historical background of this race at Pocono. Now let's go to present day. Who are the favorites going to be?
I think for Pocono, I think you're going to have Larson, of course, being a contender. What else do you expect? But as I said, Byron is going to probably beat that guy. That's going to stop Larson from going 4 in a row. And for the second one, I think we're going to see Gibbs finally get it together. And I have Truex coming back into this equation. So I have Byron and Truex that are my winners.
Well, for my winners, I believe that we're going to see return to the top and Denny Hamlin in race 1. I mean, he's got to victory lane here 6 times. And the fact that a rookie was able to win in Pocono twice, yeah, I think Hamlin, that says a lot about Hamlin's dominance here. Race 2, I see Kyle Larson going back to frame and winning. It's going to be a very interesting turn of events, I'd say. All right, I think that's good for Cup. Let's go ahead and talk about the Xfinity weekend and look at the history of the Pocono 220 for round 16 of 33. Last year's winner was Chase Briscoe. Kyle Larson got the first win here 5 years ago, driving for Chip Ganassi in 2016. No drivers won more than once, so I'll list all the winners at Pocono in the past. Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Cole Custer, and last year Chase Briscoe. Most team wins, Stewart-Haas Racing with Biaggi Dembeste Racing. Most make wins, Ford with 3, Chevrolet and Toyota with 1. So that makes me confident in my pick, learning those numbers. What about you?
Cindric.
There you go. I was about to say the same because Austin Cindric, he's good at these tracks. You know why Pocono is a good track for Austin Cindric? It's very technical. You have to shift a lot. You need to go up and down gears. You have to put a lot of pressure on the brake. It's kind of like a road course if you really think about it.
It is. That's why I think when I was starting watching the sport, I would emphasize that quite a bit, especially when Robbie Gordon was the one doing quite well compared to the other tracks when he was a single car owner. But I feel like if with Ford, the trends, I feel like it's going to continue. Cindric bounces back with the win.
Yeah, I believe Cindric is what it takes, but there could be also some competitors out there too. Also, let's not forget this weekend we'll see the first of Sam Mayer in the series. He's another young driver that you might be definitely need to keep some tabs on. We'll see how he fares out in that junior motorsports car when the green flag drops.
Well, I could hope really well. Before Ty Gibbs got all the national attention, Sam Mayer was the one that people were looking, he's going to be the next big thing. Then Ty Gibbs all of a sudden found a groove, and then boom, Xfinity winning his debut. Do I see Mayer doing that? Well, I don't necessarily think so, but a strong run will come a long way because he could use that right now, big time. Because I still stand that Mayer is the more complete driver out of the two between him and Ty Gibbs.
Yeah, it should be fun to watch, that's for sure. Let's take a look at the Truck Series now. The shortest race of the year is this weekend, the Pocono 150 for around 13 of 22, and there are only 3 races left in the playoffs. So we'll see how much significant is. And gosh, the Lightning are leading 6-0 against the Islanders in the second period. Yeah, you can't make that up. All right, this ain't world. This is not World Hockey Media. No matter how many times I try to put one together. Yeah,
Hockey season has been over for me since the Sharks were eliminated. So,
yeah, both my teams are out. I'm a fan of the Florida Panthers and Boston Bruins.
Seattle, hurry up and deliver a Stanley Cup quickly.
Is that going to be your next team?
I'm from the state of Washington.
Oh, there you go. I have a lot of people I know that are trying to be fans of the Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, we'll see how it does, but let's go dive back into the Truck Series.
Yes, back to World Racing Media. So, yeah, last year it was Brandon Jones who took to the win. The first race was here 11 years ago. Elliott Sadler was the winner. Only Kyle Busch has multiple wins, 2, which puts, ironically, Kyle Busch, they've won 4 in a row at one point. 5 wins. In fact, they won 4 out of the last 5 races here at Pocono. 5 wins for Kyle Busch Motorsports at this track. 2 wins for Richard Childress Racing and 2 wins for Kevin Harvick Incorporated, which kind of means that the RCR bunch has 4 wins if you think about it, because K-Chad was pretty much another name for RCR back in those days. When Kevin Harvick drove for Richard Childress Racing, he had his own team, which had a lot of RCR drivers behind the wheel of those trucks. Most make wins. It's a split between Chevrolet and Toyota. Ford has 1 win, however.
That was the one that Blaney won, right? When the final Speed Channel race.
Yes, 2013.
Yeah. To think about it, Ford has only won that thing once. Hard to believe.
All right. Let's talk about some of those predictions. Who's gonna bring home the trophy after 150 miles?
John Hunter Nemechek. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward to me, that one as well.
I was gonna say the same, but I have Austin Hill. I think this is when he starts turning things around in the season.
He's had those strong, consistent runs. It's kind of like with Grant Enfinger. Both of them just need, find a way to rack up multiple wins so they really see how good they are.
Absolutely, it should be fun to watch. Well, let's talk about Formula One Styrian Grand Prix this upcoming weekend. I don't think Lewis Hamilton could have had a worse choice of defeat to Max Verstappen than to go into Styria trailing at a track where Max Verstappen is pretty much called home. And if fans are there, you know who they're going to be pulling for.
And Red Bull Ring is not as obviously obvious that this
home
is
game
for 2 weeks.
It would be like games 3 and 4 at home at one arena. So Max better put 2 and 2 together. They're certainly going to the Red Bull guys are going to have a lot of control going into the weekend. But who do you think is going to come out on top on the podium on Sunday?
Let's think for this one, it'd probably be Max. Next week, for the other one, I know that's next week. I'm going to go with Hamilton on the other one, but I think it's Max going to start it off with a win there.
Yeah, I have Max Verstappen for this one. He's on a tear, and this Hamilton cannot have picked the worst time of the year to let Verstappen have the upper end.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's talk some endurance racing. We have race 3 of the Endurance Cup in the States. The IMSA 6 Hours of Watkins Glen. I'll give you an entry list in just a minute here. Because sports car racing has definitely been interesting. This is a good time of the year to watch sports car racing, for sure. We had the Nürburgring 24 Hours earlier this year. While rain was in the way, it still showed to be an interesting event. But the first major sports car race since then, in terms of an endurance length event, it's the Watkins Glen 6 Hours. Sure, we had the ELMS and the WEC. we had the WC race, but these are a lot of entries here. 40 overall. That's a pretty good number. And I believe we have all 5 classes are back. It's a good number, sufficient number. Let's talk about the overall category. Let's talk about the DPI class.
All right.
All right, so I give you the entry list.
I'm looking at it right now for sure.
So I'm looking at the entry list right here, and I see a lot of possibilities here.
Yeah, that 48 team, it looks like it's going to be probably the standout of the whole bunch because
Obviously, you got world-class drivers of Kami Kobayashi, some Pagano, Jimmy Johnson. I think that's going to be your best bet. Right, Action Express, Alley Cadillac Racing. Um, but I think I like what I see. I like what I see. I like what I see in that 10 car for Konica Minolta's Wayne Taylor Racing in the Acura RX-05. Ricky Taylor, Philippe Albuquerque, they are so fast. They're just ridiculously fast. And I'm going to go with car number 10. What do you got for the overall class?
I think I'm going to go with number 5 for this one. 48 will probably come close, but I'm probably going to go with number 5. Of Tristan Vautier, Luc Duval, and Sebastien Bourdais.
Yeah, I think the 48 will definitely be a podium favorite. What about the 55, the Mazda Multimatic Motorsports entry? They might be some favorites too. They won the Sebring 12 Hours last year.
I think we'll really see about that for sure. Gonna have to put some time into watching that one because it does clash with a lot of things, especially with the Cup doubleheader, I'd imagine. But we'll see.
All right, let's take a look at the second class. We have the LMP2 class racing this time around. 5 cars in total. First of all, we're going to see some action. 3 drivers in each car. Who will come out on top?
I'm gonna go with the number 18 team of Dwight Merriman, Kyle Tilley, and Ryan Dahl.
Not to say the same thing. The Aero Motorsport car has been ridiculously great this year. They won in class in the Asian Moss Series Championship this year. They won the 24 Hours of Daytona in class. They have a great driver lineup. I think the combination is spot on. So I'll definitely take class honors. With 9 cars in total, we have the LMP3 class racing this time.
I think to me, it looks straightforward. The 54 team is my pick. Jonathan Bennett, George Kurtz, and Colin Brown.
For this one, I'm going to go with Riley Motorsports entry. Ligier JSP 320 car. These guys are just they're really strong. Jim Cox, he's a great driver. Joran Blinkemolen, he's an amazing Dutchman. And Dylan Murray, he could be the next star tomorrow. Keep an eye on him. All right, let's talk about the 2 GT categories. The LMGTE class, known as GT Le Mans, have 5 entries in total. What are your expectations and predictions?
I think Corvettes are going to still probably be super competitive. I think this one I'm going to give it to the number 3 team of Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor.
Porsches have just been so strong with their factory driver lineups, and it always seems like everywhere they go, no matter what race they're in, they have to be class of the field, or they're not going to be anywhere at all. So that said, I have the number 79 WeatherTech Racing with Proton Competition, Porsche 911 RSR 19 with Cooper McNeil, Matthew Jaminet, and Matt Campbell. All right, let's talk about the FIA Group GT3 class known as GT Daytona. With 14 entries in total, one of the most competitive categories of professional sports car racing. That's for sure. You can really put your hand in the hat and pick out a good ticket and still be satisfied if you get a different one. That's what the GT class is really like in IMSA. But where do you see the success coming from in this weekend's showcase at Watkins Glen?
It's tough to say, honestly. I'm probably looking at the 14 Vassar Sullivan team of Aaron Telitz, Jack Hawksworth, and Kyle Kirkwood being the ones on top. It'd be a good booster for Kyle Kirkwood, fresh off of he's finally getting his mojo together in the lights. I think with this, it'll bode him quite well. And obviously, Hawksworth would be a good stock boost for long-term goals is concerned.
Well, for my pick in the GTD category, I think we're gonna have to go with the number 9 team, the Pfaff Motorsports Porsche team. This Canadian team based in Markham, Ontario, not too far from Multimatic Motorsports shop. In fact, Pfaff sells Porsches all around Ontario, but Pfaff Motorsports have been actually the quiet stars of the sprint races, but they never really broke out into the endurance races. I think we're going to see that happen here. Actually, no, I think they won their class at Sebring. You got to double check on that. But Zachary Robichon, Lars Kern, and Lawrence Vantor. So you got 2 Porsche factory drivers and a driver that comes from the same team's base in Canada racing this event. That's a great way to have good chemistry, and I have a lot of confidence in them. So they're really going to have to be put to the test here, and we'll see where things go. So for the IMSA championship, remember 4 races in the Endurance Cup. The next race will be all the way around 12 for Petit Le Mans, the 10 hours of Road Atlanta. That will close the season on November 13th. So there you have it. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch. That's for sure. It was Pfaff Motorsports that won the 12 hours of Sebring in class. I had to double check. So yeah, they did already have a win in the endurance categories, but they couldn't run too many races last year with the quarantine rulings and all that from where their team was based during COVID. But they're back now, and they should be better than ever. And in fact, Watkins Glen will have a sprint race because the race in Mosport was called off. So that's the week after. Not this week, but the next week. We have another race coming up in sports cars. That is the NLS at the Nürburgring. However, there is no entry list to come out with that, so I can't really make predictions on that. Well, Luis, thank you for being able to take your time and join me on the podcast tonight. You got any words you want to say?
No, absolutely. It's been great to join for a couple hours to discuss some racing a bit. For those who ultimately end up watching this or listening, at the LT Files, as you see on my handle, that's my Twitter, Instagram, You'll find most of my socials is through my portfolio website, luisdtorres.com. That's where I put some of my better works, some blogs that are there. Underneath in the homepage, it'll show you kind of like all my socials primarily. I also have this little YouTube channel known as Auto Rock and Racing 94. It's doing all right, to say the least, honestly. But yeah, and also a Patreon. Luis Torres Multimedia is the Patreon account. Any support would be great, but other than that, we'll see what happens this weekend in the world of racing.
Thank you very much for joining me, Louise. And for my partner, Daniel Ford, I'm Joseph Laney Powell, and we're going to sign off now. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next week.